Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Today we discuss science fiction. Let's get started.
The Mammoth Book of Best New SF28, huh? That sounds like a real time capsule, Like a snapshot of what science fiction was like back in 2015.
Exactly, and it's edited by Gardner Dozois, who was, well, a legend in the science fiction world. This volume, this particular one, is packed with stories, author spotlights, awards, the whole deal. It's a real glimpse behind the curtain of 2015 science fiction.
Interesting. So where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, one thing that jumps out is the role of small presses. We see titles like Beautiful Blood by Lucius Shepard. That one was published by Subterranean Press.
And then there's The Arrows of Time by Greg Egan. Skyhorse Nightshade published that one.
Yeah, it's a shift. Small presses were previously known for collections and anthologies, but now they're publishing full-fledged novels. It's a trend, for sure.
Definitely a trend worth noting. Now, awards. Awards are always fun. Anne Leckie's Ancillary Justice snagged the Arthur C. Clarke Award that year. Pretty prestigious, right?
Oh, absolutely. Ancillary Justice is, well, it's groundbreaking. It tackles gender identity, artificial intelligence, all in this really unique way. It's no wonder it won.
Right. And then there's the James Tiptree Jr. Memorial Award. That one celebrates science fiction that explores gender, and it went to, let me see, N.A. Solway for Repeta.
Always a fascinating award. Always pushes boundaries. And what's funny? There was a tie for the 2013 Sidewise Award for alternate history. Can you believe it?
Wow, a tie. That's got to be rare.
Yeah. Bryce Abel's Surrounded by Enemies and D.J. Taylor's The Windsor Faction, they both shared the honor.
Two incredible books, I bet. It speaks to the talent in alternate history, Oh, and The Way to the Sunrise by Weiler Kaftan, one for short form.
2013 was a year for alternate history, that's for sure. But before we jump into the stories from the anthology, I think we should acknowledge some of the voices, well, the voices we lost in 2015.
Right, of course. Daniel Keyes, the author of Flowers for Algernon, a truly iconic, just iconic story about intelligence, disability, what it means to be human.
A story that's touched so many readers and it's still studied, discussed, debated today. It shows how science fiction, it can explore these really profound themes.
Absolutely. And we also lost Lucius Shepard, a master storyteller. Gritty realism, Life during wartime is a prime example of his style.
His work, it often went to those darker places, those complexities of war, the darker side of human nature. It's a loss, a real loss for science fiction.
A big one. But they're stories. They live on. And speaking of stories, the Mammoth Book, it's packed with them. It really showcases the creativity, the diversity, just everything that makes science fiction so great.
Okay, so first up, The Lightness of the Movement by Pat McEwen. It's about this Syrian woman, Achi, escaping the civil war on Earth to find a new life on the moon.
And she meets the narrator who's working on, get this, a railroad around the moon.
Yeah, talk about hard science fiction, right? It's all about survival on the lunar surface, the challenges, the resilience of the human spirit.
Sounds intense. Okay, what's next?
Next, we have The Red Words by Ken Liu. This one transports us to a future China ruled by the Lily Empress.
Sounds pretty sensoristic.
Very much so. The protagonist, Tian Bao, he witnesses these rebel shuttles landing, signaling the start of a revolution. And Liu, he just weaves this world that's futuristic but also rooted in Chinese history and mythology. It's incredible.
Wow, I'm picturing these vivid scenes, red words appearing. It's like political intrigue with a dash of the supernatural.
Exactly. Then we have The Dusk Queen by Alistair Reynolds. This one's set on Mars. A man, he's buried after being hanged on the Viceroy's orders, no less.
Oof, grim start.
It is, but there's this ritualistic element to it. The mourners, they discard their coats in the crypt, scatter flowers, dust, like an unveiling. Reynolds, he creates this haunting atmosphere, blending the Martian landscape with this sense of ancient ritual.
I'm sensing a theme here, lots of different settings, different feels. So what about The Echo Wife? That title is really intriguing.
Oh, The Echo Wife by Yoon Hee Lee. This one's a real mind-bender. Meet Ruth. She's a private investigator, but she's got this tool, the Echo Sense. It lets her revisit crime scenes, experience the victim's last moments, like literally experience them.
Whoa, hold on. That's intense. It's like a high-tech twist on the classic detective story.
Exactly. And in this story, she's investigating the murder of Mona, a nation prostitute. The visions, they're unsettling, to say the least.
Sounds like there's a lot going on beneath the surface.
Oh, there is. Lee blends crime fiction, cyberpunk, social commentary. It's a lot to unpack.
Okay, next up, The Thought War by Paul McCauley. Tell me about that one.
This one's all about philosophical discussions about war. It's Susan and Colley, two characters who really dive deep into the why of war, the justifications, the consequences, the search for peace.
Thought-provoking, huh?
Definitely. It makes you think. Then we have Patchett by David Moles. Vlad, the main character, he's dealing with memory loss, facing his own mortality. He finds solace in these conversations with his robotic companion, our Patchett.
A robot companion, that's an interesting dynamic.
It is. The robot's logic, it clashes with Vlad's anger, his fear. It's a really poignant look at aging, loss, and the search for meaning when you're facing the end.
That sounds pretty heavy.
It is, but beautifully written. All right, next is a complete change of pace. The Tumbledowns of Cleopatra Abyss by David Gerald. We're talking asteroids in space now.
Whoa, okay, a big jump. What happens there?
Well, we've got this guy, Naram, stranded with a toolbox and a company rep breathing down his neck. But he manages to fix this broken-down truck, giving them a chance to reach safety. It's all about ingenuity, about even small acts of kindness in desperate situations.
Okay, I like Narong already. Resourceful guy, huh? So what's next?
Next, we've got The Colonel by Robert Reed. This is a story of, well, a colonel facing off against a hive mind.
A hive mind? Sounds intense.
It is. High stakes, intense action. Reed really delves into the ethics of AI. What happens when you create a consciousness that's, well, beyond human comprehension?
Big questions indeed.
There's this twist, too, involving the bicamerals, these enhanced humans with, get this, quantum bioradio in their brains. It makes you wonder, what are we capable of?
Wow. And then there's the Ernl's daughter, Ciri. He thinks she might still be, well, alive within Theseus, the hive mind. It adds this whole other layer of tragedy to it.
Exactly. Okay, now for something completely different. The Day the World Turned Upside Down by Thomas M. Dish. Imagine this. A woman in a boat, surrounded by beluga whales, as the sun sets.
Okay, that's a beautiful image. Where's this going?
Well, she meets Claudio, who's dedicated to protecting the Amazon rainforest. It's a reminder that even in the future, environmentalism, it still matters.
Right. We can't forget about the planet, even with all this futuristic technology and stuff.
And then there's this young girl whose village was destroyed by a tornado. Her message about climate change is, well, it's a powerful reminder of the human cost of these disasters.
Makes you think. Okay, what's next?
Next is Grandmother's Hands by Colin P. Davies. It's a grandmother baking cupcakes while her grandson is struggling with addiction.
Oh, wow. That's a powerful contrast.
It is. It shows how these personal struggles, these family dynamics, they endure, even in a world of advanced technology.
Human stories, they're always there. Right. Branch points in the multiverse. That's got to be a mind bender.
Oh, it is. Robert Charles Wilson takes us into these branching realities. The protagonist, Dima, he's wrestling with a choice, and the path's not taken.
Choices, huh? We all make them.
We do. And this story, it makes you think about your own choices, the paths you could have taken. It's about free will, the weight of decisions, the whole deal.
Intriguing. All right, what about Pearl Rehabilitative Colony?
Pearl Rehabilitative Colony by Eliza Victoria. Meet Pearl. She's an athlete, but she's got these augmentations. And the pressure to be a star, it's immense.
Augmentations, So it's about pushing the limits of the human body, right?
Exactly. And there's this line, Pearl describes her stomach feeling like a black hole. It's this representation of the emptiness she feels despite her success.
Wow, that's heavy. Okay, what comes after that?
Okay, brace yourself. The Carcass by Gregory Benford. Hank and Evelyn, they're dissecting an alien worm.
An alien worm. Okay, I'm intrigued. And a little grossed out.
You should be. Things take a turn, a shocking turn. Evelyn's face, it rips open, and, well, let's just say it's a twist you won't see coming.
Oh, wow. Okay, no, that's a cliffhanger. What about The Girl Who Went to Titan? What's that one about?
The Girl Who Went to Titan by Robert Silverberg. This one's about Cory, and she meets this guy, Derek, whose brain, well, it's been augmented in a way that makes him both fascinating and kind of creepy.
Augmented brains, huh? Sounds like there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, there is. Derek's obsessed with Titan, with dead people. It's a story about pushing the boundaries of consciousness, what happens when we go too far.
Deep stuff. Okay, what's next?
Next is The Doll by Genevieve Valentine. Mara, the main character, she's dealing with the loss of her mother, her coping mechanism. A clockwork doll that's, well, a replica of her mom.
A clockwork doll. Okay, that's a little creepy, but I get it. Grief can make people do strange things.
It can. But here's the twist. Ruth, a copy of Mara's consciousness, has been uploaded into the doll.
Whoa, hold on. So it's not just a doll, it's like a sentient being.
Exactly. Ruth, she's struggling with her identity, her resentment towards Mara, her desire for freedom. It's a story about consciousness, identity, the ethics of creating artificial life.
Makes you think about what it means to be human, right?
It does. All right, The Messenger by Ken Liu is up next. We're talking couriers delivering letters in a world shrouded in secrecy.
Couriers? Sounds kind of old school for a science fiction story.
It does, but trust me, it's anything but. Tam Lane, the main courier, his sacrifice, delivering that final message, at the cost of his own life. It's heartbreaking but beautiful.
Wow, okay, I'm sensing a theme here. Lots of sacrifices, lots of tough choices.
You're right. Science fiction often explores those extremes of human experience.
So, Plastic by Paul J. Macaulay, that has to be a look at the future, right? What's it like?
It's a dystopian future, for sure. The plastic ocean is a reality, and economic collapse has led to, well, desperation.
That's bleak. But sadly, also kind of believable.
It is. Macaulay creates this world that feels, well, a little too real. It's a warning, a cautionary tale about the choices we're making now.
Choices matter, that's for sure. Okay, Blood and Smoke, Vinegar and Ashes, that's a mouthful.
It is. Unahali, he's got away with titles. This one introduces Paige, a vampire hunter in a futuristic world.
Vampire Hunter, I'm in. Is there action?
Oh, tons of it. Lee seamlessly blends vampire lore with, well, futuristic tech. Coil guns, throwing stars, it's all there.
All right, sign me up. Sounds like my kind of story.
You'll love it. Next up, The Promise of Space by Robert Reed. We meet Matt. He arrives on El Sombre for a fresh start, a chance to reconnect with his parents.
Family drama in space. I'm intrigued.
It's more than that. Matt gets involved with the Nathan 2 launch, a space exploration project, and it rekindles his passion for science, for technology.
Ah, the allure of space. I get it.
There's tension, too. Protests, sabotage. It's not all smooth sailing.
Of course not. It wouldn't be a good story if it was. So, after the green, what happens there?
After the Green by Ian MacDonald. We meet Ostap, a man who's dealing with the after effects of augmentations.
Augmentations again. Interesting. Is this one a cautionary tale?
In a way, yes. It's about the toll, the physical and emotional toll of pushing human boundaries. MacDonald's writing is really vivid, capturing Ostap's pain, his isolation.
Makes you think about the cost of progress, right?
Exactly. Okay, now for a complete shift. The Bride of the River God by Nigel Kalis. Think an idyllic island, a genetically engineered bride named Glory, and an elaborate ceremony.
Whoa, hold on. Genetically engineered bride. That's a new one. What's the ceremony about?
It's this blend of cutting-edge tech with a society that embraces the natural world. The ceremony, it's fascinating, a little unsettling, and Kalis's writing, it's beautiful, lyrical, it transports you to this world that's both familiar and alien.
Sounds like a nice break from all the dystopian stuff. Okay, A Cold Wind from the North. What's that one about?
A Cold Wind from the North by Alistair Reynolds. We've got Devin Ames, he's a tech tycoon, and his rival Warren, who represents a more mechanized path to the future.
Two different visions of the future, huh? Interesting.
It is. Reynolds' writing, it's fast-paced, action-packed, full of mystery.
So a bit of a thriller, then.
You could say that. All right, next up, The Amtic's Rival by Paul DiFilippo. Ankle, our main man, is a warrior supplying weapons to rebels fighting against, well, a pretty oppressive regime.
Ooh, rebellion. I like it.
This one hints at a bigger conflict, a fight for power with far-reaching implications. DiFilippo's writing is gritty, realistic. It captures the brutality of war.
Sounds intense.
It is. And the ending, well, let's just say it leaves you wanting more. All right, now for something a little different. I Met Her in the City of Variable Lights by Jeff Vandermeer.
Vandermeer, he's a master of the weird and wonderful. What's this one about?
It follows Ick, an innovator who, get this, revolutionizes transportation with a fleet of Zeppelins.
Zeppelins. Now that's an image.
Right, it's a story about innovation, the power of technology, and Vandermeer's writing. It just pulls you into this world.
Sounds visually stunning. Okay, The Bee's Her Heart, The Hive Her Belly, that title is a mouthful.
It is. Benjamin Sherdwanko, she's got a knack for evocative titles. This one's about Natalie, a programmer who uses drones to pull off a heist.
Drones and heists. Sign me up.
You'll love it. It's a high-tech caper with twists and turns galore.
All right, I'm intrigued. And what about A Letter from the Emperor?
A Letter from the Emperor by Gwyneth Jones. We're at the South Pole Station. And Anthony, he makes a decision he'll regret. He sells a letter from Leslie without even reading it.
Sounds like trouble.
It is. It's a story about privacy, communication, the value of human connection in a world where technology can often isolate us.
Yeah, I can see that. We're so connected these days, but also somehow more isolated than ever.
Exactly. And finally, The She Creatures by Peter Watts. Amara encounters this saurian that looks a lot like her dead friend Goroff.
A saurian, like a lizard.
Yeah, something like that. It's a story about identity, memory, and the nature of consciousness. Watts blends science with this sense of wonder and mystery. It's really something.
Sounds like a great way to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
It is. We've covered a lot of ground, from the moon to Mars, from dystopian futures to stories of hope and resilience.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in the mammoth book of Best New SF28.
Exactly. We've got a lot more to discuss, so stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into this incredible anthology.
You know, from the last part, one story that really stayed with me was The Last Judgment by James Patrick Kelly. A lost colony, unique customs, really fascinating stuff.
James Patrick Kelly. Oh, yeah, he's a giant in short fiction. 2 Hugo Awards, one for Think Like a Dinosaur, another for 1016 to 1.
Exactly. And The Last Judgment, it's classic Kelly, this idea of a lost colony, how human nature adapts, the cultural shifts, the biology. It's really thought-provoking.
Yeah. The courtship rituals in that story, they were something else. It makes you realize how much our environment shapes us, even our most basic instincts.
Oh, absolutely. And the way he blends in those elements of different biology, it's like, what does it even mean to be human anymore?
Big questions, right? Okay, next up, The Cure by Cigut Johnson. This one's about, it's about a protagonist trapped in a virtual world.
Trapped? How so?
They can't log out. Financial constraints, you see. It's a bleak look at economic disparity, social isolation, all wrapped up in this technologically advanced society.
Sounds a bit too close to home, honestly.
It does, doesn't it? It makes you think about the dark side of virtual reality, how it could make those problems even worse.
Okay, let's move on to something a bit lighter, maybe. What about The Desert of the Nameless?
The Desert of the Nameless by Robert Reed. This one's about Numair and his, get this, walking 3D printer.
A walking what? Okay, now I'm intrigued.
It's brilliant. It creates shelter panels in the desert. A real testament to human ingenuity, finding solutions even in the harshest environments.
I love that. It's like even in a desolate desert, there's hope.
Exactly. And there's this image, Numair building a yurt with a robot centaur. It's whimsical, but also inspiring. Like, technology can be used for good.
Oh, absolutely. Not all doom and gloom, right? So the Green Moonies, that sounds interesting.
The Green Moonies by Ian MacDonald. This one focuses on a group, they're dedicated to preserving the moon's environment.
The moon's environment, I never thought about that.
It's easy to forget, right? But even in a future with space travel, there are people fighting for nature.
Makes sense. We see that today, even. Okay, what about the Tumble Downs of Cleopatra Lys? We talked about that one a bit in the last part.
Right, by David Gerald. This one really delves into the Free Lunch Project. You know, sending a capsule to the moon, the whole team working together, the challenges, the triumphs, it's classic exploration.
I can almost feel the excitement, the tension of that launch.
Gerald captures it perfectly. Okay, The Colonel by Robert Reed. This one's a bit different. Remember Vlad? The character dealing with memory loss?
Oh, yeah, I remember him. Poignant story.
It is. This one focuses on his conversations with R. Patchett, his robot companion. They're really deep. About aging, mortality, the search for meaning.
The robot provides a different perspective, I imagine.
He does. It's this clash of raw emotion and cold logic. And Reed handles it beautifully. Okay, The Day the World Turned Upside Down by Thomas M. Dish. Remember the girl whose village was destroyed?
Oh, yeah, the one with the powerful message about climate change.
This story, it's a wake-up call. It shows the very real consequences of our actions. It's about taking responsibility, protecting vulnerable communities.
A timely message, for sure. Okay, Grandmother's Hands by Colin P. Davies. That title sounds familiar.
It focuses on, a grandmother baking cupcakes while her grandson is battling addiction.
A quiet story, but powerful, right?
Very powerful. It's about family, about those personal struggles that just continue no matter how advanced technology gets.
Okay, Branch Points in the Multiverse by Robert Charles Wilson. That one has to be a mind bender.
Oh, it is. Branching realities, Dima grappling with a choice, that path's not taken. It's about free will, consequences, the whole shebang.
Wilson's great at making you think about the big picture. Okay, Pearl Rehabilitative Colony. We talked about that one, too.
Liza Victoria Wright. Pearl, the athlete, the augmentations, the pressure.
The pressure to be perfect. It's a commentary on our society, isn't it?
It is. It's about body image, achievement, the dark side of pushing those boundaries.
Makes you think about where we're headed. Okay, The Carcass, that was a wild one.
Gregory Benford, yeah. Hank Evelyn, the alien worm, the shocking twist. It's a blend of science fiction, horror, and just pure imagination.
Benford's not afraid to push the envelope, that's for sure. What about The Girl Who Went to Titan?
Robert Silverberg, right? Cory, Derek with the augmented brain, Titan, dead people. It's a look into the future of consciousness, and it's a bit unsettling.
Augmented brains, it's a scary thought, but also fascinating. So The Doll, that was another one that stuck with me.
Genevieve Valentine. Mara the Doll, Ruth's Consciousness. It's a story about grief, memory, and the lines between reality and artificiality.
It's almost like a ghost story, but with a sci-fi twist. Okay, The Messenger, what was that one about again?
Ken Liu, right. Courier's Secret Sacrifices. It's a story about connection, the power of communication, even in a world where it's dangerous.
Liu's writing is always So emotional, so powerful. Okay, plastic, that was a tough one.
Paul J. McCauley. The plastic ocean, economic collapse, refugees. It's a dystopian future that feels a little too real.
It's a warning, a reminder that our choices matter. Okay, blood and smoke, vinegar and ashes, that was a wild ride.
Yoon-Ha Lee. Page, the vampire hunter, the action, the futuristic setting. It's a blast.
I love how Lee blends genres. It's always so fresh.
He's a master at it. The Promise of Space by Robert Reed. Matt, his family, the Nathan 2 launch, the tension. It's a story about ambition, reconnection, and the allure of space.
And the conflict between science and faith, right?
That too. Reed weaves those themes together really well. After the Green, that was a tough one.
Ian MacDonald, Ostap, and the after effects of augmentations. It's a story about the cough of progress, the sacrifices we make.
And the isolation that can come with it. MacDonald captures that feeling perfectly.
The Browd of the River God, that was a nice change of pace.
Nigel Kalis, The Idyllic Island, Glory of the Bride, The Ceremony. It's a story about tradition, technology, and finding beauty in unexpected places.
Kalis's writing is so evocative, it transports you to another world. Okay, A Cold Wind from the North, what was that one about again?
Alistair Reynolds, Two Visions of the Future, Dead and Ames, The Tech Tycoon, versus Warren, the advocate for a more mechanized path.
A clash of ideologies, huh? That's a conflict we see a lot in science fiction.
And in the real world, too. Okay, The Antics Rival, that was a action-packed one.
Paul DiFilippo, Ankle Warrior, The Rebellion, The Fight Against Oppression, and a story about courage, about fighting for what you believe in even when the odds are stacked against you.
DiFilippo does a great job of capturing that spirit of resistance. Okay, we're almost at the end here. I met her in the City of Variable Lights.
Jeff Vandermeer, the master of weirdness.
Ich, the Zeppelins, the City of Variable Lights. It's a story about innovation, about the power of imagination.
Vandermeer's worlds are always so unique, so strange and beautiful.
They are. Okay, last one. The Bee's Her Heart, the Hive Her Belly.
Ben Janoon Sriwanko, that title is a trip.
It is. Natalie, the programmer, the drones, the heist. It's a wild ride.
Sriwanke's got a knack for blending technology and action.
She does. And with that, we've covered all the stories in the Mammoth Book of Best New SF28. What a journey.
It has been. From the moon to Mars, from dystopian futures to stories of hope and resilience, this anthology has it all.
Wow. You know, looking back at all these stories from the Mammoth Book of Best New SF28, it's amazing how many different voices, different perspectives are packed in here.
It really is. It's like science fiction. It's got this global reach, you know, exploring these universal themes, but through so many different lenses.
We've been everywhere, haven't we? The moon, Mars, dystopian cities, islands, space, the human mind, you name it.
And the characters always grappling with these big questions: identity, belonging, purpose, technology. It's all there.
You know, one thing that keeps popping up for me is this idea of adaptation. Like how humans change, how they evolve when faced with new environments, new challenges.
Oh yeah, like in The Lightness of the Movement, Achi and the narrator, they're figuring out how to live on the moon, where even breathing is a struggle.
Right. Or The Last Judgment, where Kelly imagines this colony with its own unique biology, its own customs. It's like, what does it even mean to be human in those circumstances?
Makes you think, right? And then there's the whole science versus faith thing that comes up a lot too.
Yeah. Like in The Promise of Space, Matt's got this scientific worldview, but then he runs into this religious fanatic who sees things totally differently.
Two different ways of looking at the world, clashing. It's a conflict we see all the time, even today.
And then you've got The Bride of the River God, where technology and tradition, they're intertwined. Like science and faith, they can coexist, maybe even complement each other.
Interesting. It's like these stories, they're making us think about these big ideas, but in a sci-fi context.
Exactly. And we can't forget the stories that explore the potential downsides of technology.
Oh yeah, like Plastic by Macaulay, the plastic ocean, the collapse, the refugees. It's a bleak picture of the future.
A cautionary tale for sure. And Pearl Rehabilitative Colony, with Pearl and the pressure to be perfect, the augmentations. It's a commentary on our own obsession with achievement, with pushing those boundaries.
It makes you wonder, are we headed down that path? Are we sacrificing too much in the pursuit of progress?
Tough questions, right? But I think that's what good science fiction does. It makes you think, it makes you question, it makes you imagine different possibilities.
It's like the future, it's not set in stone. These stories, they're showing us different paths we could take, some good, some bad, some in between.
And it's up to us, right, to decide what kind of future we want to create.
Exactly. It's our choices, our actions, our imaginations that will shape what comes next.
That's a powerful message. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Mammoth Book of Best New SF28, I think it's important to remember that the future is, well, it's in our hands.
We're not just passive observers. We're active participants in shaping what's to come.
Absolutely. So go out there, dream big, Imagine those possibilities, and let's create a future worth fighting for.
I'm with you on that. And hey, thanks for joining us on this journey through 2015 science fiction. It's been a blast.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoy the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge. Spread the word. 30 feet.